As many of you know, I have been on the Corona madness right from the get-go. It all started in January when I was planning to dive into Agenda 2030 full time. It was all my research in the various issues that I was concerned about that led me to the plan for the globe. And it's put out by the UN. Every country in the world has a plan. And in Canada, I got on to what was going on during our last election, our federal election. For years, I wasn't getting involved. I really wasn't. I had become rather jaded early on about politics. I tried to get involved a lot of times, and I felt like people were pushing me back and out. And I decided early on that I just wasn't going to pursue it. I had many people try to bring me into their fold, but I always found their motivations were not authentic, pretty phony. And honestly, I found politics to be extremely disingenuous. And that's just not who I am. I'm the person who says it like it is. I don't sugarcoat a lot. I have empathy, but I believe people deserve the truth. And the more I get involved, and the more I know, the more I know that the politicians think very little of us. They do. Agenda 2030 was hidden from the Canadian public. And it was all sorted out, the details, over many years with the UN, you know who, all sorts of stakeholder groups. These are the advocates of the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, of the United Nations and global governance. And these are 17 advocates for people, planet, and prosperity. Now, as you roll through the list of presidents, prime ministers, queens, highness, billionaires, ask yourself, do you see yourself in any of them? I know I don't. That don't really cover the general Joe, like you and me. Special interests. And in fact, in our politics over the years, it's these special interests that have literally sucked up and sucked the life force out of government, because it's about pleasing everybody. And the fact is, it's the vulnerable groups that have somehow managed to, right now, formulate the world around their special needs. For people that just want to go about their lives, don't expect any special privileges. We didn't stand up for ourselves. And we really didn't understand that we required a voice because we thought it was being represented, and it's not. In the global plan, United Nations, Agenda 2030, and every nation plan, which are blueprints, the future has been fashioned around the protection of the vulnerable. Now, the UN doesn't give a shit about the vulnerable. Let's be clear. It's their segue in. And it's China's segue in. And I'm seeing a lot of it. Now, I remember back in 2008 when I was publishing Organic Lifestyles magazine, I got a letter. It was after a little expose I'd done. You see, in 2008, I was quite horrified at the fact that the world had seemingly forgotten who China was. I didn't understand because as I grew up, I was learning about the tyranny of the nation and the tyranny of communism. Yet, by 2008, when they put on their grand show to the world with the Olympics, while they were simultaneously putting North Americans out of business and stealing the business.
China's pattern of misconduct is well known. For decades, they've ripped off the United States like no one has ever done before. Hundreds of billions of dollars a year were lost dealing with China, especially over the years during the prior administration. China raided our factories, offshored our jobs, gutted our industries, stole our intellectual property, and violated their commitments under the World Trade Organization.
Somehow, this show was the beginning of people loving on China and absolutely turning their back on what they knew about the nation. It blew me away. So I did an expose, and it was about the fuguas that were the representation and depiction of the Olympic rings, and the Chinese had created these caricatures to describe them. And then I took their description and told you the real story. And that got me a letter from the then president of the Chinese Business Association in Vancouver, calling me prejudiced. Yeah. In the fall of 2008, I did a piece just following the games, and I did a comparison between China's melamine milk scandal and Maple Leaf meat here in Canada. Now, different than Maple Leaf, in China, they fed their contaminated melamine milk to our athletes because Yuli was a sponsor and they were the company in question. And they knew about it, they just hid it. And in fact, they never did disclose it. It was the New Zealand Prime Minister at the time that disclosed the scandal. And as a result, I heard up to 300 people were executed over this scandal because that's how it rolls in China. No. See, when I'm talking about this, I'm not talking about Chinese people. I'm talking about a CCP government, Chinese Communist government, who has now reneged on their Hong Kong deal.
This week, China unilaterally imposed control over Hong Kong's security. This was a plain violation of Beijing's treaty obligations with the United Kingdom in the Declaration of 1984 and explicit provisions of Hong Kong's Basic Law. It has 27 years to go. The Chinese government's move against Hong Kong is the latest in a series of measures that are diminishing the city's long-standing and very proud status. This is a tragedy for the people of Hong Kong. the people of China, and indeed the people of the world. China claims it is protecting national security. But the truth is that Hong Kong was secure and prosperous as a free society. Beijing's decision reverses all of that. It extends the reach of China's invasive state security apparatus into what was formerly a bastion of liberty. China's latest incursion, along with other recent developments that degraded the territory's freedoms, makes clear that Hong Kong is no longer sufficiently autonomous to warrant the special treatment that we have afforded the territory since the handover.
China has reneged on that deal. Hence the demonstrations, hence what is happening in Hong Kong. I've been watching a lot of footage, and it's interesting how many times I've come across these protesters speaking perfect English and yelling that if it can happen to them, it can happen to us.
It is the large majority of all of Hong Kongers fighting against communist China, really, in the end.
We are fighting for freedom and survival, okay? And the world should know, if Hong Kong falls, the whole world falls, okay? Because the Chinese Communist Party is the existential risk of humanity, period.
And I'm seeing it here. I've seen it locally. I did a video some time back called China is Spying on Me. And it started around the solar radiation management stuff I was doing. That was in the fall. It went on. And I've had various levels of surveillance for quite some time. Sometimes it goes away for a while, and then it comes back. I know that they infiltrate the groups, the peaceful protest groups that are being formed around the country to stand up for our democratic rights. And what happens is they infiltrate those groups very quickly. They pay people, and they've been doing it all over the world forever. I came across it in Uganda in 2015 when I was there to scout out a cocoa cooperative. They turned out to be a band of criminals, but with everybody all in on it. But at the end of the day, it was deep in Chinese territory, or what you would think was their territory, because it wasn't the Ugandans watching what I was up to. It was the Chinese. In Ecuador, I have seen their influence extend. And I actually covered that quite a bit this last winter when I was there, because I was seeing their influence. Now, what confused me at the beginning was China, the UN, how did that all work? But as I have been digging in, what I have learned is that China and you know who are like this.
Chinese officials ignored their reporting obligations to the World Health Organization and pressured the World Health Organization to mislead the world when the virus was first discovered by China.
And Bill Gates in China are like this. This from April 29th, where in an interview Tuesday, Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates dismissed calls to hold China's Communist Party accountable for lying to the rest of the world and enabling the spread of the coronavirus pandemic. Gates said China did a lot of things right, while slamming America's response. He insisted that any move to hold China accountable would be a distraction. And now, President Trump has done what everybody needed to do a couple of months ago, and that was to cut ties with you-know-who. Now,
we have detailed the reforms that it must make and engage with them directly, but they have refused to act because they have failed to make the requested and greatly needed reforms. We will be today terminating our relationship with the World Health Organization and redirecting those funds to other worldwide and deserving urgent global public health needs. The world needs answers from China on the virus.
Now, the U.S. a couple of years ago cut ties with the UN Human Rights Council, I believe. And this is huge because Trump is denouncing the World Health Organization. And that's going to have a huge influence here. And I'm wondering why Canada is not following in suit. What's very concerning to me here in Canada is that Trudeau and his wife are deeply attached to the deep state and China. It was a We Day UK event in which Bill Gates is a founding partner in Microsoft in this We Day. It's a we organization. And Sophie is a big part of this. And that's where she supposedly got COVID-19. And I want to take you on a little cruise to the partners. This charity is 20 years old and, of course, covers a range of partners. And the corporate partnerships would be important. Of course, the founding partners. We've got Allstate right there from the get-go. DHL. And there's Bill Gates' Microsoft. Nutrien was a surprise. This is a Saskatchewan company involved in chemical agriculture. And that new plant protein for the children, because by the time they grow up, that's all they're getting. RBC is here, and of course TELUS. Isn't that interesting how Huawei just piggybacked on TELUS to get into Canada for the 5G network? Unilever, of course. Now, as you can see, all of these are into sustainable development. And I thought we would just head over here because I found it right in their literature, the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And as we venture over, the Sustainable Development Goals are a universal set of 17 goals created by the United Nations. So as you can see, all of these companies and the United Nations, Bill Gates, and Sophie are all involved in this charity. And this is where Sophie caught COVID. And actually, I am now taking that opportunity I won't be referring to COVID-19 or coronavirus anymore in my videos as that. I'm renaming it CCP virus and following the trend of the Epoch Times here in Canada. That is, Chinese Canadians, followers of the Falun Gong, who have been persecuted here in our own country, in their country, by the CCP government. We're infiltrated all the way. Sophie got this virus at We Day. And the Prime Minister won't test. The kids won't test. The mom won't test. Is that because if he did test, that he would actually be complicit in this whole fraud? Would that somehow envelop him as attached to this NWO plan? It's odd. And to prompt a move like severing ties with the World Health Organization has massive implications on the World Health Organization. And the fact that the World Health Organization is actually running Canada right now, de facto, because those chief medical officers in our province are holding power. Teresa Tam holding power. Us Canadians do not understand how integral we are in China's plan, because we're seeing it playing out. Now, as the virus took hold, the CCP virus, Huawei, who was having trouble getting approved here in Canada, somehow slid in the back door with TELUS for the 5G network. Yes, the We partnership with TELUS. And apparently their partnership goes back till 2007. Since then, our company and our team have given more than $20 million to support We's efforts in Canada and around the world. Now, our government is working with China for a vaccine. Is he on glue? I'm not putting anything in my body from China. And why are we even dealing with China at this point? I've been bringing this up time and time again.
China's CanSino Biologics, the company behind one of the few coronavirus vaccine candidates already in clinical trials, is collaborating with Canada's National Research Council. The Research Council said it would scale up production for CanSino's vaccine at a government facility in Montreal, adding that CanSino is preparing a trial application for the drug regulator, Health Canada.
You gotta know that the CCP plays to win. And the fact that the World Health Organization overlooked fact after fact, believed in China when they were not disclosing, continued to play ball. It's corrupt. And we need to part from the World Health Organization immediately. And I believe we inevitably need to follow Trump's lead. We need to stand for democracy. We need to stand behind Hong Kong. Now, Trump has gone further than that, and he's actually now reviewing every policy where it comes to Hong Kong, because Hong Kong had special allowances.
Beijing's decision reverses all of that. It extends the reach of China's invasive state security apparatus into what was formerly a bastion of liberty. China's latest incursion, along with other recent developments that degraded the territory's freedoms, makes clear that Hong Kong is no longer sufficiently autonomous to warrant the special treatment that we have afforded the territory since the handover.
And now that China has taken this aggressive stance, Trump is doing the same.
China has replaced its promised formula of one country, two systems with one country, one system. Therefore, I am directing my administration to begin the process of eliminating policy exemptions that give Hong Kong different and special treatment.
If we continue on this course with the United Nations and the World Health Organization, we will be enveloped in this global web that we will never escape. And that web is China. Communism. That is the new global model. There's a special I want you to watch, and it is called The Chinese Way. And it came out a couple of years ago, and they're short little 7-minute segments. And this man will take you through what the United Nations and China see as the way forward.
The rise of Donald Trump, these are, to my mind, all the signs of the Western model in deep trouble.
It's not a system that we'll accept over here in the West, and they're imposing it stage by stage by stage. And that is the removal of our rights, the contact tracing, these invasive policies that originated in China. The fact our government is roping us into that very same framework, that global framework, has to tell you that it is in fact communism we are moving towards. You just saw your government restructure itself in its entirety by reallocating money and shifting resources in an unprecedented manner. All when Parliament was out, when there was no oversight. Those are communist tactics. That's what they do. Us Canadians and Americans and anyone in the Western world needs to pay attention right now, because if you believe in free will, democracy, and freedom, that's not what they have in store for us with Agenda 2030.